Thank you very much for visiting my channel. If not difficult, like and subscribe to my channel to always be aware of events. Thank. Russia is set to deploy 9,000 soldiers to Belarus, the Belarusian Defense Ministry has claimed, sparking fears that a fresh ground assault on the Ukrainian capital could be imminent. Although the Kremlin has claimed that the move is part of a defensive operation. Some commentators believe that Putin is attempting to draw Belarus, a country bordering both Russia and Ukraine, into his war, The Telegraph has reported. Russia's defense ministry stated that the decision to send soldiers into Belarus, for the first time since March, was dictated by the ongoing activity in the areas bordering us. It comes as Russia also threatened to equip Belarusian warplanes with nuclear missile capability after Russian soldiers came flooding across the border, by the trainload, on Saturday. Belarus and Russia reportedly began combining some of their military forces shortly after the explosion on the Kerch Bridge, joining Russian-occupied Crimea to the Russian mainland, according to Belarus dictator Alexander Lukashenko. China this week told its citizens to leave Ukraine amid increasing security threats, and some countries, such as Serbia, have closed their embassies entirely. The Belarusian border, which lies 140 miles from Kyiv, was used as a launchpad for Putin's invasion of Ukraine in February. On Saturday, the Russian Foreign Ministry said it would equip Belarusian Su-25 warplanes with the capability to carry nuclear-capable missiles, but that it was not yet arming Minsk, the Belarusian capital, with the missiles. With an army size of roughly 50,000, Belarus does not currently have any nuclear missiles of its own, and is not regarded as an effective military force by defense experts. Moscow and Minsk officials say that Ukraine is planning to invade Belarus, leading the Belarusian Defense Ministry to order its troops to be tested for combat readiness. Dictator Alexander Lukashenko announced earlier this week that he would deploy a joint military task force with Moscow, a move Minsk also claims is purely defensive. The combat readiness test, ordered by Lukashenko, was announced as the head of his secret service said he expected to see a turning point in Vladimir Putin's invasion in the coming months. Belarusian news agency Belta reported Tuesday that the Security Council of the Republic of Belarus had begun a test of the armed forces of Belarus in accordance with instructions of the head of state, echoing Russian rhetoric leading up to the invasion of Ukraine, in which Russia claimed it was carrying out military drills on the border. The test is comprehensive and covers the most important matters concerning the readiness of army units for carrying out their missions, the agency reported, noting that units will practice switching to combat-ready state, while undertaking marching drills, deployment drills and combat training missions. The combat readiness test has included the Belarusian army testing its mobilizations procedures and calling up reservists. Up to 60 T-72 tanks had been taken out of storage in Belarus and sent to Belgorod in Russia, near the border with Ukraine, according to reports. A Belarusian NGO, though, played down concerns of a new Russian ground assault on Kyiv originating in Minsk. It said that the Russian soldiers were newly mobilized men sent to bases across Belarus without tanks or armored personnel vehicles.